Aha, here I am again. So this morning, instead of yesterday, like I had hoped, I'm going to go through the process of changing a non-bolt-in turbocharger to an otherwise good setup. And unfortunately, until I get my head wrapped around, in other words, read carefully, I get a clue on what I want to do with this 13C business on the 90 plus manifold, I got to go back to an earlier version. So what's going to go in this thing's place is a Mitsubishi td05 H12B, which by all accounts and everything that I've read and experienced sucks. I had it on another car. I thought it was pretty beautiful. I thought it sounded nice. It gave a lot of upper boost. This one is sorely lacking and has enough slop in the bearings that I'm surprised that it didn't auto change its own oil courtesy of inlet manifold dispersal of fine oil droplets, which I did find. Now what we're going to do is go through and bust off these old rusty bolts one at a time. And prior to making this video, I determined that I was able to move them after prodigiously soaking them in PB Blaster, which if you don't have it, can get to. So in a little bit, when my parts get here, we're going to go through the process of what I believe to be correctly changing the turbocharger in correct order. We'll go through and loosen up all the piping. We'll loosen up our oil feed line and its bracket. We'll loosen up the coolant lines, and finally the drain line, and we're going to fit a new drain line, seal, and everything else that goes along, and give it a true oil change along the way. Now, I am going to reuse the majority of these lines, and reasoning behind that is pretty simple. They're there by virtue, they're relatively clean, not a recommended practice. If you are going to do this with a new, like Reed Kinugawa 20T update or something that you spent $800+ on, highly recommend you change all the lines just a matter of practice. I am going to go through and clean everything out pretty scrupulously. However, that is going to loosen some of the old coked oil. So we're going to catch all that first before it winds up becoming our own self-made grinding machine. And with a turbine / compressor wheel spinning at close to 100,000 RPM, you can kind of do the math on it and you get the rough impression that the replacement wouldn't last long. So we're going to clean all that out. We're going to fit the lines back in. We're going to change the manifold and put in a Reed good gasket set. Don't go with Felpro. As much as I love that company, as much as they've been good to me over the years, they really need to step up their game just a little bit and kind of go back to the way they did things, which was make quality parts. The stuff that they have out there now is so I went with another brand. And additionally, as you can see, as I've worked on things over the time that I've had this car, kind of just cleaned things up as I've worked on it. And as you can see, the engine bay isn't too bad. You'll notice this, which was a quote-unquote emergency replacement. That's out of my Ninja stash. Had to reuse that because my old one was getting marginal. That's the air mass meter, by the way. Mine was reading ridiculously low at low RPM. At the same time, I did an air valve, some other little things, and hence that's why you see this little patch job here. On a side note, the AC's been converted to R134. I did that, had a heck of a fun time doing it. Should have videoed it, should have put it out there. There's a lot of good little how-tos that made the job go a lot easier than otherwise could have. So with that in mind, we're going to do the same kind of approach where I tend to take a little bit more time in doing these things. I don't rush. I don't really feel the need to. Even when I'm under pressure, I still take my time. And instead of pretending that the world's falling apart until this car gets back on the road, I kind of just make a game of it. So that's what we're going to do. I will see you all briefly in a bit. Feel free to comment, but if you're going to spam me, talk to me privately or do something else other than just blast it out there. If you have some criticism, I'll definitely take it. yeah, that's about it. Again, I'll say it one more time for everybody out there. I'd really love to see a hull set on this car. I think it would be really nice to just clock one back to like 8 psi just to hear the noise. And plus, they look good too. Hull set, hull set. But I got to go with a used Mitsubishi instead. All's fine and swell. I'm just glad I have another one. So, sans the parts arriving here shortly, the little $60 worth of stuff you need that you should renew, like don't reuse old crush washers, whatnot, banjo bolts, ferrules, whatever, that little nonsense that gets you in trouble. We're going to go through and rehab this, and as we replace the manifold, we're going to use new manifold studs, bolts, etc. to properly put that in its place, and yeah, we're going to have some fun. See you all in a minute.